switch me on.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Proton Pack is Not a Toy. My name is Matt, and this is episode 4 of the Venkman conversion, where I'm taking my Proton Pack, making some changes to it to make it more closely resemble the Venkman Hero Pack from Ghostbusters 2. Now, if you've missed the previous 3 videos, I do have a playlist here on YouTube, and you can click through those and see what you've missed so far. I've pre-recorded all of the details that I've changed this week. There were some that were going to take a little bit more time, maybe a different method or two that I wasn't sure which way I was going to go with it. Some was going to go long and need some editing, and so I figured it'd be best to just have those done, and I can just voice over those, and you can still see what I've done here in a moment. First, I just want to do an update on one of the changes that I made last week. The ion arm end cap, I did some weathering on it. In the middle of it, I wasn't real happy with the way that it was scratched. So I went back and painted it. But when I was going back and looking at the reference photos again, I noticed that the part that I wasn't happy with was newer weathering, newer damage to that part. And if you look at some of the older reference photos we have, it's not there. It's all black. So I decided to just leave it all black, and I'm happy that it matches that era of the pack, at least to that point. So beyond that, there are 3 things that I changed on my Proton pack this week. The first change I made this week was to add the blob of glue that goes around the round resistor on the side of the ion arm. And the way I achieved that look was to take the whole resistor off of the pack, quickly add a bunch of hot glue to the bottom of it, and then smush it down into the hole before it hardened. I thought about doing it a few different ways, maybe just adding a bead of glue around the edge of it, or pulling it out part of the way and then trying to surround the hole with that, but it really didn't look right unless it was all the way out and then smushed into the hole, and that really achieved that perfect circle kind of look as it hardened. So it's not the right color. I might go back and paint it a little bit to get more of that yellow look that we see on the real pack, but I'm happy with the way that the glue looked as it dried. The second change I made this week was to add what's called the ugly weld. It goes between the ion arm and the booster tube here behind the long resistor. And this is the detail I've never had on any pack before, so I was trying to figure out where I was going to get the little rod that would go in between when I was at work, and I had to cut some seals off of a trailer, and some of them were these metal ones that kind of have the same diameter of like a screwdriver, and we have to break them off with bolt cutters. So after I snipped both ends of that off and then ground them down on either end and painted it black, I found that that would be just about what I needed to make my little rod for the ugly weld. And to weld it in, I'm not a welder. I got some JB weld that comes in a little tube, a little stick, and it just makes like a putty when you roll it together, almost kind of like a silly putty kind of consistency. Once I had that to the right consistency, I wrapped up a little rod with the JB weld and then put it in the right place. It goes pretty much even at the bottom with the bottom screw on the long resistor if you want to line those up, and then put it in place. And this stuff hardens pretty quickly, and so I didn't mess around, and I just started working it and pushing it from the middle toward either side, just to kind of fill that gap on either side. And when I was done with it, you can barely even tell that there's a rod in between. It's just kind of called an ugly weld. And it's just kind of a spot where it just connects the two together. And when I used the JB weld, I probably should have used gloves. I did not, and you want to make sure that your hands are good and clean, because if this stuff gets in your eyes, you can be in some hot water. So be sure, if you're going to use this method, that either you use gloves or you wash your hands immediately after using some of this JB Weld stuff. But once I got it in there, I made sure that I had it smooth on either side and on the top and bottom. And it does not take long for this stuff to dry. I went and washed my hands, and I came back, and I was going to smush it down a little bit more just to kind of smooth something out, and it was already hardened. So this stuff doesn't mess around. It's going to stay in place, and it looked really good, for my opinion, once I was done with it. And I've since gone back and I've painted over it with black spray paint, and it's as ugly as it's supposed to be, in my opinion, and I'm happy with the way that it looks there on the pack. The third change I made this week was a substitution. I had 3 Generation 2 Legris Elbows, you might call them Legris Elbows, on my pack on the island arm, the HGA, and on the side of the cyclotron. Now, the Generation 2 elbows are more accurate to the semi-hero packs from Ghostbusters 2, and even those had more of a mix and match between Generation 1 and Generation 2 elbows. I don't think any of them had 3 Generation 2s on them. If you go back and look at all of the hero packs in the first and second movie, they have Generation 1 elbows on them. But for us to get them now is almost impossible because they've either all been bought up or broken or who knows what at this point. So if you do find them, they're super expensive, and it's almost not worth it to even put them on your pack if you do find them because they're so expensive. But what you can do is what I did and go to GB HQ Parts Depot and buy a set of elbows that are virtually identical to the ones used on the hero packs. The only change is the input where the hose goes into the elbow is one size bigger. And so it's going to be virtually identical to what we see on the hero packs. So that's what I did. I bought some of those and swapped them out for the ones that I have. So once I got them on the pack, the only change I had to make the tubing fit was to wrap the end of the tubing with some Scotch tape right there at the very tip of it, and then slide that into the input there on the elbows, and it fits just like the original tubing did on the other elbows that I just took off of the pack. So it's a small change you just have to make to the tubing to make it fit, and they look pretty much identical to what it would look like to have the right elbows on there. I did put it on the HGA, but that is a part that I'm eventually going to change on my pack. I haven't gotten around to receiving it yet, but I have ordered a new HGA that's going to be a little bit more accurate to what we do see on the Venkman Hero Pack, and I'll show you the differences when that does arrive, and we'll get to that when that part is in hand and ready to go onto the shell. That about does it for episode 4 of the Venkman conversion. Now, I've still got a few things left on this side of the pack that I still want to change, but it's stuff I've bought and haven't received yet, or some stuff that I still need to buy. So it's about time for me to take the shell off of the motherboard and really get into some of those changes that I talked about when we first started this video series. If you look hiding behind the pack over there, you can see the Alice frame that I have planned to put on this pack. I'm also going to swap out the splitless loom for split loom between the wand and the pack itself. And then on the motherboard, I do have a bunch of holes that I want to drill out, and I'll explain that when I do that video. That's most likely going to be the next 3 videos here in the series, so if you're interested and you haven't subscribed already, be sure you do subscribe so you don't miss out on any of those. And like I said before, if you missed the first 3 videos, check out the playlist and you can see anything that you have not checked out to this point. I do appreciate all of you who have reached out to me and said how much you're enjoying this kind of video build thread that I'm making here. And I've enjoyed making these videos for you guys. And I should have another one out on a weekly basis for the next few weeks. Again, I appreciate everybody for watching these videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day.
Switch me on.